Former President Donald Trump reacted to special counsel John Durham's report that, in CNN's Jake Tapper's own words, partially exonerates the former commander-in-chief of his alleged Russian collusion. Trump wrote this on Truth Social. Wow. After extensive research, special counsel John Durham concludes the FBI never should have launched the Trump-Russia probe. In other words, the American public was scammed, just as it is being scammed right now by those who don't want to see greatness for America. Very sad. It's
like Trump is sitting right here, Robby, truly. an impression for the gods. Right? Okay, so just to be clear about, what is happening here. Mm-hmm. Like, fundamentally, what came out of this is that the FBI treated potential allegations of Russia interference with respect to the Clinton campaign very differently than they did the Trump campaign, which, again, keeping the political posture of everything in mind, is very significant as we look to what the election outcomes were. So this is from the Washington Post. In particular, the report notes that while the FBI warned Clinton's team when agents learned of possible evidence by a foreign actor to garner influence with her, agents did not give a similar defensive briefing to the Trump campaign before quickly launching an investigation. So they warned Clinton, just started investigating Donald Trump. They went on to say that the FBI's handling of key aspects of the case was, quote, seriously deficient, causing the agency, quote, severe reputational harm. Now, the framing here that the FBI was kind of the victim of some bad people who ruined its reputation is interesting, because obviously conservatives have been hot on the tail of trying to perhaps defund the FBI, do some serious reform of the FBI and their overreach of power. So there is some interesting ways that the FBI is kind of protected, even as these significant admissions are being made. But when you go through the list, and I'm sure more people will start to unpack this 300-page report as time goes on, it's the difference of treatment, depending on the kind of the political orientation of these two camps, that is so striking. And it's going to be very difficult for Democrats to defend.
I was particularly interested in this part of the Durham report where they talk about the Steele dossier.
Right.
And they say that that the FBI was citing the Steele dossier in its efforts to obtain surveillance warrants against a Trump campaign advisor. I believe that was Carter Page. Carter Page, I think, was his name. And they were doing that at a point where it was already clear that the Steele dossier was being called into question. So they were citing as evidence something that was already they can't say, oh, we didn't know it was BS yet. Yeah. Like, people were saying this is fishy, and they were still using that to go after a member of the Trump campaign. That's pretty bad. So he really goes after them for that. That shows you, and again, we should broaden that criticism of what they're doing there, because I never want it to be just about Trump. Think how the government, think how the FBI, other law enforcement agencies can always find a pretext to surveil you, to investigate you, to do something. If there's information out there that they already know is bad, and they can use that to get a surveillance warrant against you, that's what's wrong with this whole rotten system. The FISA system and other systems that were set up as a result of national security concerns is always, it's for your safety, it's for your security, that we're just going to take all your civil liberties away, and we're going to give the FBI and whoever else vast new powers to do anything on mere suspicion. And guess what? Conservatives, who are all unhappy about how Trump has been treated very unfairly by these bad people, you voted for this. You voted to, as did all Democrats, or most Democrats. There's cranky dissenters on both sides. Your weird civil libertarians, that Democratic and Republican side, who are virtually extinct, and they were raising issues at the time. But most of the bipartisan consensus was to fully empower law enforcement to surveil Americans in the name of fighting. Back then it was Al-Qaeda. Right. And look at how this monster has mutated.
Right. And it's still happening. One of the very last segments that Tucker did before he left Fox was to cover the fact that in April, I believe, these 4 members of the African Socialist group were charged with election meddling with Russia, and the FBI raided their homes. Last summer, there was another raid of their homes when an elderly member was kind of frog marched out and asked to sit on the curb and kind of humiliated publicly in this way that these very attenuated links to Russia, saying that you did this kind of a tweet or you said something like this on social media. And oftentimes, remember, a lot of the allegations of Russian influence had to do with tweets that said things like America has racial inequality.
Right.
Oh no, the Russians told me that America has racial inequality. I never would have known that.
They got to you too, Briahna. I can see the antennae.
The African Socialist People's Party never would have realized that if Russia hadn't clued them in.
No, it's this very lazy idea that if you're buying into anything that pro-Russian entities might be saying, that means you're captured by that interest or that like that. No, you might just happen to agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very bad and very lazy.
Well, conservatives are now calling to defund the FBI, of course, in the wake of the Durham rebuke of the agency, and also pointing out that former Secretary of State and 2016 presidential nominee Hillary Clinton's role in the Durham report is suspicious. Greg Price writes, the Durham report notes that it is a crime to knowingly provide false information to the government, which seems to be exactly what Hillary Clinton and her campaign did with the Russia hoax.
Mm-hmm. So I guess I would push back on that slightly. I mean, Hillary Clinton is an underhanded political operative, but she was campaigning. She was doing whatever. I was going to say she was doing whatever she could to get elected, but she was not doing literally whatever she could do to get elected because she didn't freaking campaign in Michigan enough. That would have been the obvious thing to do. But she, she was raising all these dirty, sleazy insinuations. The Trump campaign did as well. So did the Obama and Romney campaign. Every campaign does this. I don't want to detract from my focus on the FBI here because look, campaigns are going to play dirty. They're going to throw muck. What was improper here is law enforcement operating on that. Law enforcement should have just ignored dirty campaigning. You don't become compromised by it. Don't actually take it seriously. So I don't know that this is so much of a case of Hillary Clinton knowingly lying to the FBI as law enforcement, the deep state, the apparatus of the state, taking her side, being partial to her side, wanting her to win. And seeming to treat her with more credence than they would anyone else.
Yeah, I think that's fair at this point. I mean, I do think that one of the objectives of a real FBI investigation would be to see the extent to which Clinton and all of her power and the power of the Democratic Party and her allies within the Democratic Party who had been in leadership positions and made appointments in the FBI or had this influence in the FBI, et cetera, for all of these years, did play a more direct role in influencing the trajectory that the FBI took. I mean, when you see, this is going to be the concern, just to steel man the conservative position here for a second. When you see a clear difference along partisan lines with how potential foreign interference is treated, you can come to the conclusion that it was just an accident. You can come to the conclusion that the FBI, through no fault of Clinton, happened to have this built-in bias from previous years and previous administrations that had nothing to do with her personally. Or you can draw the conclusion that there was some bleed over and a preference for Hillary Clinton in the FBI wasn't completely separate and apart from what Hillary Clinton and her campaign's own preferences were. And this might be one of those things that is never fully discovered. It might be something that doesn't exist at all. But I do think that given the possibility of there being a relationship there, I don't question why Republicans would be interested in having a more fulsome investigation and to be broadly distrustful of the FBI.
Well, and to wonder, which this is the way this should point now, how can anyone possibly trust the FBI to fairly adjudicate or look into the Hunter Biden matter?
Yeah, it is interesting that the Democrats were so frustrated by the focus on Hillary Clinton's emails and the October surprise of it all. And there was some skepticism over the intelligence agency at that time, but it never really rose to the level of, I don't want the FBI to exist. Mm-hmm. They're out to get Hillary Clinton. And that is an interesting kind of difference in the Constitution.
Democrats are institutionalists. Again, I'll bring up again that survey from last week or the week before on trust in media outlets, where Democrats trusted media outlets more than Republicans even for conservative media outlets like National Review, the Washington Examiner, that's because Democrats are the party that trusts and Republicans are the party of deep skepticism. Now, in our current arrangement of the two sides, so that doesn't surprise me at all. That Democrats are institutionalists. They don't want these things to go away entirely. They want reform, cautious, careful. Maybe more funding for them. Maybe they'll clean up their own houses if they get more money or something like that. Republicans are suspicious. We just need more kids from McKinsey to get in there and clean up the party, and that'll fix it all.
That'll
fix it all. That'll fix it all. Mayor Pete. Mayor Pete to lead the FBI and every other agency. I'm sure that'll be great.
From your lips to hopefully nowhere.
More Rising right after this.